The draws for the World Tour Finals 2025 have been made. They were made only a few hours ago, and so here I am reacting to them. In this video, of course, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the groups, on the players involved. I won't go into a crazy amount of detail. I did do a video looking at all of the players that will be playing at these World Tour Finals, so if you want more information on all of them, then go back and watch those videos. They are available there, and I split them into 5 parts so you can pick out the disciplines that you want. But, of course, in this video, the main thing I'm going to do, on top of giving some of my thoughts on the groups, is of course I'm going to be doing some predictions. Everyone loves a good prediction video. What I will say, a quick caveat when it comes to predictions, I'm not going to be predicting who I think is going to win overall. Basically, my predictions are going to be who I think is going to come out of the groups. The reason for that is that after the groups have decided, it then goes into another draw, so it's randomised. So it's very hard to kind of predict, whereas in a normal tournament you can see the path. So you can kind of, it's a little easier, I guess, to predict it that way. Here, when it comes to the World Tour Finals and other tournaments like the Olympics, it's a little bit trickier. So I thought it's better for me just to predict who's going to come, who I think is going to come out of the groups. I did this last year and I really enjoyed it, and I want to do it again this year. If you don't know how many people will get through the groups, each discipline has 8 players or pairs, so there's 2 groups of 4, and from each group 2 players will qualify. Quickly, sorry, before I get into it, Beckman's Breakdown merchandise. I've released 2 new designs, this one and a black one, all available on the website. I'll put the link in the description below. There is 20% off. If you buy 2 or more items, you get a further 10% off, and it's free worldwide shipping. I think if you order now, you might still be able to get it in time for Christmas. A great Christmas gift, but if not, then that's great. But anyway, let me crack on with the video. I'm going to start here. I've got my notes. I'm going to start with the men's singles. So in Group A, we have Kunle-Vittersson, Anders Antonsen, Christo Popov, and Jonathan Christie. Now, this is a really interesting group. I think with the men's disciplines, especially men's singles, men's doubles too, very difficult to predict. It's been that way in the men's disciplines for a little while now. It's very open, so incredibly difficult to predict. And this year's World Tour Finals is no different. Top seed, Kunle-Vittersson, it's not an easy group for him. But in all honesty, any group that he would have been put in wouldn't, on paper, have been an easy one, because out of all the players, all 7 other players that have qualified, Kunle-Vittersson only has a positive head-to-head against one of them, and that's Kodai Naraoka. But more specifically in this group, it's not all doom and gloom if you're a Kunle fan. I'm a Kunle fan, so I'm always looking for the positives. Against Anders Antonsen, Kunle-Vittersson has won their last 2 meetings, including a huge one, which was the semi-finals of this year's World Championships. Versus Jonathan Christie for 2025. So if we just look at the head-to-head for that year, Kunle actually has a 2-1 head-to-head advantage. And against Christo Popov, whilst the Frenchman has won their last 3 encounters, not looking too good, it must be noted that 2 of those 3 did end in withdrawals due to injury for Kunle-Vittersson. So for me, when it comes to Kunle-Vitt, it's always, and this is always a thing with him, it's going to depend on his mood. I have heard that he did play in the recent SEA Games only in the team event, and the reason why he only played the team event was to focus on the World Tour Finals, which is good, but it's also that he had dental surgery recently. So not quite sure whether he's had the maximum amount of time needed to train and get himself into full fitness for these World Tour Finals. I have seen snippets of his play from the SEA Games. I think I watched a little bit of his match against Lung Jun Hao in the team event of Malaysia, and he looked pretty good. I wouldn't say he was amazing, but he managed to win, and you know, it was pretty standard Kunle-Vitt performance. But the World Tour Finals is a completely different beast, and so again, it is a major tournament. But you know, with Kunle-Vitt, I mentioned this last video, when it comes to say Worlds and Olympics, those majors he usually brings it. For the Super 1000s and even World Tour Finals to an extent, not so. So there's always going to be a little bit of a question mark against Kunle-Vittersson. For Anders Antonsen, he did win his last tournament in France, and he will, I think, come into this tournament sharp off the back of playing in the China Super Badminton League. where aside from being given the RKO I made, where he basically fell through the service judge's box thing. He has looked pretty sharp in that. He hasn't played, from what I've seen, any one of the top players like Li Shifeng or Shi Yuqi that are also playing in that Super League, but he's played some decent players and he's looked very confident. And I said this in the last video, I do think playing in that league will give him good training, good competition, good match play in the build-up to these World Tour finals. So yeah, and obviously I think Anders will want to make amends for last year, experience-wise, for sure. So yeah, I think overall, like I said at the start, men's singles in general is difficult to predict, and especially this group. They are all pretty close in their head-to-heads. They have all shown they can beat each other throughout the year. The only exception to that is actually Christo Popov and Jonathan Christie, because Christie hasn't beaten Popov. They only played once. But it must be said that was in an early round at the China Open. And since that tournament, and since that period, Christie's level has certainly, he certainly turned his season around, you know, with his wins in tournaments like the Denmark Open, etc. So even on recent form, this group I think is quite tricky to call. Anders has been good. I've spoken about him. Jonathan Christie, like I mentioned, has also been good. Both those guys winning tournaments of the highest level. But Christie also reached the final of the Super 750 in France and has had a very good 2025. And we all know the level Kunlevut can produce. He did reach his third consecutive world final earlier this year. But if I had to predict, again, very, very difficult, and it's going to be the case for a number of these groups, especially in the men's event, I've picked Anders Antonsen and Jonathan Christie. Anders I think he's going to come in super sharp. He won his last tournament, and when he's riding high on confidence, he is difficult to beat. And I picked Jonathan Christie for a similar reason. I know he didn't do particularly well in his last tournament in Australia, but if we take that aside, all his other events, he has been playing very, very well. And yeah, it's going to be difficult. You could list list reasons for all sorts of players, but those are the two from Group A in the men's singles that I've gone for. Group B is Li Shifeng, Cho Chien-chen, Shi Yuqi, and Kodai Naraoka. Now I've written here that for defending champion Shi Yuqi, he must be happy to avoid a Jonathan Christie, who's the only player with a positive head-to-head against him. And also, I think avoiding Kunlevut-san, who can be very awkward for him as well, and who pushed him insanely close at last year's World Tour Finals. I think it was 25-23 in the third game. So really, really close. And let's not forget that Shi Yuqi won that. So I think Shi Yuqi will be happy that he has avoided those two players. So I think as a result, one prediction already out the way. You know, Shi Yuqi's had a fantastic year, won 3 out of the 4 Super 1000s. He's the world champion. Had a little scare. There was a little doubt I saw that I mentioned in the last video about his withdrawal at the Chinese National Games when he had that popping sensation in his left ankle. But it seems that he's okay, and I've watched some of his matches from the China Super League, and there seems to be no ill effects from that. So I think if you weren't going to pick Shi Yuqi, that'd be quite the gamble. And so I have picked him as one of my predictions. My other prediction, I think it's going to come down to Cho Chien-chen and Li Shifeng. Now, Kodai Naraoka is a fantastic player. He's been a world finalist. He's won a recent tournament. He won the Kumamoto Masters, and he played really, really well there. But he does have a very poor head-to-head against all the players in this group. And I think that's because they all have a good attacking game, and Naraoka is known for being a bit more of a reactive player. Now, if Naraoka can use that attacking game that he showed where he won the Kumamoto Masters, then maybe he might be able to have a bit more of a say in this group or even qualify. But the guys in this group can also counter any loose attacks that Naraoka may give away. And I have a feeling that Naraoka's attack, whilst he might use it a bit more, it can lack that accuracy, and it can be used against him. And the players in this group are very good at doing that. So, in terms of my predictions, I've gone for Cho Chien-chen. Again, it's a very close call. Just for me, Li Shifeng, I'm never quite sure what level he's going to bring. And with Cho Chien-chen, I chose him last year, and he did pull through. I know that was by some misfortune with Li Zijia's injury. That group all kind of got messed up. but Cho Chen kind of benefited from that. So I'll go for him again, but also I've got to show some respect for the older players. Us vets have got to stick together. So I've gone for, in Group B, Shi Yuqi and Cho Chen. Moving on to the next discipline, women's singles. Group A is An Si-young, Akane Yamaguchi, Putri Kusuma Wadani, and Tomoka Miyazaki. Now, I think most badminton fans are going to look at that group and see it's difficult to look beyond An Si-young, the current world number 1 and Olympic champion, and a player who has won 10 titles this year, and Akane Yamaguchi, who's the current world champion and also had a very good 2025. Not only do both those players have favourable head-to-heads, but they have far more experience and have had much better seasons as well. So everything is stacking in favour of An Si-young and Akane Yamaguchi. Now, looking at Wadani and Miyazaki, Wadani has been steadily improving, taking Yamaguchi to 3 for the first time in their last meeting at the World Championships. But I can't overlook the fact that in the final game it was 21-6 to Akane Yamaguchi. So whilst it was the first time I went to 3, the third game was rather one-sided. And with Tomoka Miyazaki, she hasn't had the best of form recently. I said in the last video about the women's singles, Miyazaki had a very good start to the year, but has been slowly fading off. It's not like she's been doing terribly, but just not making the headlines or having as many great results. The only thing I think that might disrupt an An Si-young Yamaguchi getting through this is, I'm not quite sure on Yamaguchi's ankle. She did roll it at the Australian Open, where in the first round, then she went on to lose to Nozomi Okuhara, which was the only time she hadn't made, I think, at least the quarterfinals this season. So I'm not quite sure what her fitness levels will be, or whether she's going to be fully injury-free. But if she is, there has been plenty of time, and I haven't heard any news that it was a really major ankle roll. But then Akane Yamaguchi you never really find out too much about her until you see her play. She keeps herself to herself. But I still think my predictions for that group, Group A in the women's singles, An Si-young and Akane Yamaguchi. Group B is an interesting one in that we have the 2 Chinese players. We have Wang Ziyi, Han Yue, and then we have 2 Thai players, Pornpaway Chochuang and Ratchanok Intanon. Now, I think most people, like with the top group, with Group A, are going to look at Group B and look at the 2 players who contested last year's final and who will have the home support. Of course, that's Wang Ziyi and Han Yue. But if we base this group on head-to-heads alone, Ratchanok should come through this, as she has a positive head-to-head against all 3 other players in her group. Not only that, but she has had some very good recent form. She won the Kumamoto Masters, playing really well, and then she reached the semi-final of the Australian Open, where she also played well. She just ran into a very inspired and motivated An Si-young, and I think also fatigue did play a little bit of a factor in that. Now, although Ratchanok does have a positive head-to-head against all of them, and if you're a Ratchanok fan, I am definitely a Ratchanok fan, you will think, okay, this is a great opportunity for her. She hasn't been at the World Tour Finals for a couple of years. She's come back, and now she's got a group that she has a really good chance to get through. But their head-to-heads, it isn't always like it says on paper, because if you look a little closer against both those Chinese opposition, she has lost their last 2 encounters. But to flip it again, to finish with a positive, Ratchanok has beaten Wang Ziyi this year at the Sudirman Cup, where there is also a big pressure. The Sudirman Cup, if you don't know, is the World Mixed Team Championships. And Wang Ziyi can sometimes unravel a little bit when it comes to big pressure. We saw that at the World Championships where she lost to PV Sindhu, and obviously at the Sudirman Cup where she lost to Ratchanok, and that was a big reason why China started to put Chen Yufei into the singles events rather than their top-ranked player of Wang Ziyi. So maybe that could make things a little bit interesting. Now, I think, rounding up with Ratchanok, I said this in my last video, but I really do think she needs to win 1 or 2 of her matches in the group in straight games. I think if she has absolute battles, I fear physically she will fade. And I think, lastly, again, if I add on to that, I think actually possibly the order of play might affect this group. So, using Ratchanok as an example, if she's to play Wang Ziyi first, which is possible, and she has an absolute humdinger and loses, while she still would be within a chance, I think physically and mentally as well, that might affect her. So it's going to be really important for Ratchanok to get off to a really good start. I know that's the same for all players, but I also think, add to that, I think she's going to have to win opening game, or at least split her opening games where she hasn't used up too much energy. If she goes into the final day needing a win, and she's had 2 really tough days, I fear that she won't be able to pull through. Now, Pornpoi Chochuong, the other Thai player, also I think has a bit of an outside chance, as whilst her head-to-heads aren't favourable, she did win her last meeting against Ratchanok at the Singapore Open, and she's won her last 2 meetings against Han Yue. So, if she can continue that form and win 2 matches in a group, which is usually what it takes to get through, then we could see Pornpoi Chochuong. And at the World Tour Finals, whenever she's played, she's usually done pretty well in the group. I think she's qualified first and always produced some amazing wins. So I think that also goes in favour of her. And so, yeah, it is very difficult to pick. But the players I've gone for Wang Ziyi. I mentioned that she does have a slight tendency to maybe falter at the majors, but she didn't falter at the World Tour Finals last year. She did win it, and she has had an incredibly consistent final this year. We haven't spoken much about it. I think that's because Anna Young's had an even better year. We've seen Akane Yamaguchi come back to win the Worlds, and obviously the return of Chen Yufei, I think, has kind of put Wang Ziyi back into the shadows somewhat. For my other pick, very, very difficult. I did actually just have Ratchanok, but now I just remembered that fact about Chochuong, who always pulls it out at the World Tour Finals. But I'm going to still go with my original pick, which was Ratchanok Intanon, just for something different. Her recent form has been very good, and I just like to see her go through. But like I said, that is important that I think that she avoids. Not that it is possible, but avoids having too many really, really physical battles, because that is definitely something at her age, and just it's always been a slight weakness of hers. That I think if games get physical, it just drops her a bit, and then she's just not quite in as good a position and can't use her shots as well. It's definitely something that can affect her. So I think it'll be quite interesting to see who she plays first. I think if it's Wang Ziyi, wouldn't be a nice opening day for her. But maybe she goes into that match fresh. There's so many ways you can look at this thing. But those are my picks. For Group B in the women's singles, I've gone for Wang Ziyi and Ratchanok Intanon. Moving on to the doubles events now, starting with the men's doubles. Group A, we've got Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae. And then we've got Man and T of Malaysia, Gautama and Isfahani of Indonesia, and Chu Xiang Che and Wang Chi Lin of Chinese Taipei. Now, I think this pair, Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae, all have positive head-to-heads against all the players in the group. They haven't actually lost a single match to any of them. With the year they've had, their 2025 record, they are the world champions, world number ones. They were World Tour rank 1. Kim Won-ho's Seo Jae's won the World Tour Finals 2 years ago with a previous partner, so plenty of experience. It is really difficult to not see them coming through. Now, there is some doubts. It's not as straightforward as I've just made it sound. Against 3 times versus Man and T, they've gone the full distance, and one of those was the World Championships. I think I remember that match. It looked like Man and T might actually cause an upset, but it was just a very subtle tactical change by the Koreans, something they are very good at, that just turned that match around. And against the Taipei pair, the new Taipei pair, twice they've gone to 3 games as well. And let's not add, they've only faced the Indonesians once. So it's quite difficult to look into it when you've only played a pair once. So, like I said, it isn't super straightforward for the Koreans, but I think and I'm pretty sure most 99.9% of the badminton world from that Group A, will expect Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae to qualify. Very difficult for them to not see them coming through first, but the fact that the top 2 go through, to see them lose 2 of those matches, 1 maybe I could see, 2 that's very, very difficult. So already 1 pick for Group A, it has to be Kim Won-ho and Seo Jae. The other spot in this group is incredibly interesting though. I've got some question marks, with Man and T. I'm not sure if they're fully fit. Kai Won T, to say his full name, did suffer a 7-centimeter tear in one of his calves, but he continued to play tournaments in a bid to qualify for the World Tour Finals, which they did. They have travelled to the SEA Games, and as far as I know, they were in the semi-finals. I'm not sure if the semi-finals have been played. I haven't seen the result from it. But in the team event, I saw one or two matches. They looked okay. It looked... T definitely was moving a little better, and as a result, Man looked a bit more confident and all that kind of stuff. You know, if one partner is a bit down, it can affect both players. I wouldn't say they were playing absolutely brilliantly. Oh no, I do remember that. I think they lost to Gautama and Isfahani in the semi-finals, which actually is interesting for this group, isn't it? So, because they're going to have to play each other again. So yeah, talking of Gautama and Isfahani, they're always dangerous. And like I said, I have seen a few of their matches from the SEA Games. They did beat Aaron Chan Soviet, who are the second seeds of this event, very easily in the team event of the SEA Games, en route to Indonesia winning. And then if you look at the Chinese Taipei pair, they won against the Indonesians in their only match of against those two pairs, and they're a dangerous new pair as well. So it's very, very difficult to pick. You know, we've got question marks against Man and T's fitness. Gautama and Isfahani are always dangerous, and they're looking in really good form, but they've only played against the Taipei pair. I know it's only once, so you can't look maybe too much, but the Taipei pair won, and they actually won it in straight games. So they're all capable of beating one another. But I have gone for the Indonesians of Gautama and Isfahani. Their good recent form. Their one loss to the Taipei pair, I said it was straight games, but it was two close games. I think it was 19 and 18. I think they have more of an edge over the Malaysians and a little more experience as a pair than the Taipei pair. Even though Wang Qilin is a two-time Olympic champion, I am looking at them as an overall pair. The experience does go with the Indonesians. But it is very, very tight. So, Group A, I've gone for Kim Won-ho, Seosun-jae, and Gautama and Isfahani. Group B, Aaron Cha and So-yik, Sakwik Childhood, Ranki Reddy, and Chirag Shetty, Liang Wei-kang and Wang Chan, and Alfian and Fikri. What an insanely tight and tough group. All four pairs are powerhouse pairs. I even include Alfian and Fikri, who have just formed their partnership, but the fact that they managed to qualify for these World Tour finals after only playing 8 tournaments when you have 14 going towards it, that just shows the quality of that pair. Now, the Malaysians, Aaron Cha and So-yik, former world champions. They are the highest seeds in the group. They are second seeds overall, but they will not have it easy. They have a huge head-to-head against the Indians, against Ranki Reddy and Shetty. It is 11-5 in their favour. That sounds like really they should be the ones coming through that. But their last two meetings, the Indians won, and it is 2-2 in terms of head-to-heads for 2025. So nothing between them this year. And if you look at the last two results, the more recent form, the Indians have it over them. They do have a huge disadvantage against the Chinese. They're 8-3 down, against the Chinese pair. But since the Olympics, they've only played once. And to be fair, the Malaysians won that very straightforwardly at the Asia Championships. And then also for the Malaysians, they've played the Indonesian pair twice, and have yet to win a match. It's going to be difficult for the Malaysians to come through their group. Also, their history of the World Tour Finals, it's not good. I think they've qualified, 4 or 5 times, and I think 3 of those times they've come dead last in the group. So they haven't got a good history there, and it's a very, very tough group. But can't completely rule them out. I think based on the head-to-heads and recent form and just all those kind of things, I think the Indonesians of Alfian and Fikri are a pair most people are looking to qualify. They only really recently have seemed to struggle in finals, which obviously the group stages aren't. So can they continue that hot form at these World Tour finals? So based on head-to-heads, if we look now at Liang Wei-kang and Wang Chan, they should go through as the other pair, really, if you base it on the head-to-heads, because they have an 8-3 advantage against Aaron Cha and So-yik, and a 7-3 advantage against Ranki Reddy and Shetty. But whilst they do have a big head-to-head advantage against them versus Malaysians, like I've already said, they lost their only match since the Olympics, and that was incredibly easily. And versus the Indians, they've been, against Ranki Reddy and Shetty, they've been trading wins in 2025, so that advantage is 7-3 to them. But if you look at 2025, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they've been trading wins, so it's a lot closer in 2025. So I think this group's going to come down to a few factors. It might even come down to the conditions of the hall, the shuttle speed, and just generally who plays well on the day and who can handle it. We've got Aaron Chan-Soo-Yik, very, very strong defensively. They have shown that they can play a bit more attacking. Rankin Reddy Shetty have incredible power. But if the shuttle, I think if the shuttles are playing quite quick, that might actually help them because it's harder for opposition to use the tactic I think can be effective, which is to take speed out. And Liang Wei-Kang and Wang Chan, for me, with them, it's all about just what level they can bring on a day. We saw at the Hong Kong Open what they're capable of. They beat Rankin Reddy and Shetty in that tournament. And they were really, really good. And they had some good performances, but it's just been a lot of mediocre stuff in between. So can they use the home support to kind of bring it out? That's definitely going to give them a little bit of a boost. But they're also the only Chinese pair in it. So the pressure's on them to deliver in the men's doubles. So it's very, very difficult. So predictions, as you can guess, I've gone for Alfian and Fikri. And actually, looking at my notes, I haven't even filled out the second spot because all I put is, damn, this is hard. I can see it going to the wire and on count back, but have to put, and then it's blank. I clearly forgot to put in the name. Oh, wait. I'm going to go for, let me put myself on the spot here. I think I left this blank because I thought I'll do the rest of my notes and then come back to it. And then I just forgot that I had done that. Oh, okay. Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Ooh. Rankin Reddy and Shetty have no positive head-to-head against any of those pairs, but again, we've spoken about that. Aaron Chan-Soo-Yik's history at the World Tour Finals. Liang Wang have been in a World Tour Finals final 2 years ago, where they lost to Sersen Jay and Kam Min-hyuk. So again, there's just so many factors. Oh wow, I think I could pick any of those and it could have a good chance. I'm gonna go with the Indians, Rankin Reddy and Shetty. I think I've gone for them. They've had good recent form. They've been gradually, slowly getting better and better. They're getting a bit more consistent at making semi-finals and finals. I think Aaron Chan-Soo-Yik are good, but their history at the World Tour Finals leaves me in doubt. And their performance at the SEA Games, I know they're in the final, so maybe if they can win that final, that would give them the boost I think they need. That might change things a little bit, but their form recently has been a bit up and down, and I think just their history at the event. And then Liang and Wang, just for me, too many up and down moments for me to really have enough faith to put in them. It's very difficult, but I think I'm going to go with Alfian and Fikri and Rankin Reddy and Shetty. I know my Indian supporters will be very, very happy for me to say that. Moving on, women's doubles. Group A, Pearly Tan and Tina Murutharan, Zhai Fan and Zhang Shushan, Yuki Fukushima and Mayu Matsumoto, and Rin Iwanaga and Ki Nakanishi. Again, like a lot of these groups, it's difficult to predict. I think for the Malaysians, Pearly Tan and Tina Murutharan, it's quite a good draw for them. They have avoided two pairs who have given them big headaches. That's Lu Shengshu and Tan Ning, who have a 10-3 head-to-head advantage against the Malaysians. And also the new pair, the Korean pair, the second seeds, we knew they were going to avoid them anyway, of Kim Hee-jong and Kong Hee-yong, a pair they haven't yet beaten. So for them, where's my notes? For the Malaysians, they've got a good positive head-to-head against Fukushima and Matsumoto 5-1, and I think the one was their first ever meeting, so the last 5 have gone in favour of the Malaysians. And against Rin Iwanaga and Ki Nakanishi, they got a 7-2 advantage. And I think if I look back at the last time they faced, I think it was the final in Kumamoto, where I felt that the Japanese had a good chance. I thought Pearly and Tina were looking, especially Pearly, looking a little tired, but they weren't able to do much, or they weren't able to capitalise on that and deliver a win. Pearly and Tina have a 1-5 head-to-head disadvantage against the Chinese, but you only need to win 2 matches to go through. So yeah, they've got themselves a really good chance. For Fukushima and Matsumoto, they've had a great start to the year, but have had an average middle, but they did win the French Open, so kind of that's going to give them a little bit of a boost. They do struggle, like I said, against the Malaysian pair, but against the Chinese pair of Zhai Fan and Zhang Shushan, they got a 3-0 head-to-head. They do like playing them. They played them 3 times this year and haven't lost. I think only once it went 3 games as well. So that's interesting. And also, if we think about with the Chinese pair, they have had some time off. I don't think they've played with each other since the China Masters, because Jai Fan had a little period over the European tour with Chen Qingchen. And then there's been no tournament since then. They didn't play Kumoto or that because the Chinese players were focusing on the Chinese national games, where again they didn't play together. And now it's the China Super League, where again I don't think they're on the same team. So maybe that little time away might affect the Chinese pair. But let's not forget, before that they were in imperious form. Winning multiple tournaments, and they were probably proving themselves to be one of the best pairs, if not the best pair in the world. For the other Japanese pair, Rin Iwanaga and Ki Nakanishi, they're always dangerous. Although, like I've said, they do struggle against all these pairs. But let's not forget, where I always feel like they have struggled, I think they've been in 5 finals this year, and they've lost all those finals. So we've seen a number of tournaments where they can play really well all the way up to the finals, and then it's the finals where they struggle. And this is the group stages, which is, not a final. Obviously, I said that about someone else earlier in this video. So they have gone to 3 games, 3 times versus their compatriots as well, and they do tend to do better in the earlier rounds. So that's not to kind of rule them out. But prediction-wise, I've gone for Pearly Tan and Tina Murtharan, just because against the 2 Japanese pairs, they have a very good head-to-head, very good track record, and although they have a poor one against the Chinese, I think the Chinese, having not played together, maybe it gives Pearly and Tina a chance. Pearly and Tina are in the final of the SEA Games. They had a very strong, very tough game against the Indonesian pair that won in Australia in the semi-finals, but maybe some people might think that might affect them, but I think it's going to give them, if they can win the tournament, it might give them a little bit of a boost going into the World Tour finals. But I think they are top seeds for a reason. They finished the World Tour as number 1 because of their consistent year. And whilst against the Chinese, they might struggle against the other 2 pairs, they do very well. And I think if they can win those 2 matches, that's going to see them through. And I've also picked Jai Fan and Zhang Shushan, as I think when it really matters, I think they can pull it out. Like I said, they really struggle against Fukushima and Matsumoto, which could be, if they lose that match, that could really put some pressure on them. But against the other Japanese pair, they've got 2-0 head-to-head, and like I already said, they've got a good positive head-to-head against Pearly Tan and Tina Murtharan. I have mentioned they have had some time away, but I think, like with most Chinese players, they are very good at pulling out, and Jai Fan, there's no one more experienced and more decorated than her at these World Tour finals. In fact, I think she's won it 4 times before, so I think she will be able to bring out her top game. And so, yeah, and it's not like they haven't played badminton, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident in the Chinese pair coming through alongside the Malaysians. Group B, we've got Kim Hee-jong and Kong Hee-yong of Korea, Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning, Baek Ha-na and Lee So-hee, and then Se and Hung. So for me, this is no disrespect for the Chinese Taipei pair, but I think they're there to make up the numbers. This group is really a battle between the 3 top pairs I mentioned, not 4, as Se and Hung haven't won a game, won a match against any of these pairs. And there's also a pattern. When I looked at the head-to-heads before I did these, I did the head-to-heads for all potential groups. And I think there's only one where they haven't played one of these pairs, but usually in their first match against a pair, they've gone to 3. I think against like 6 of the pairs, the first match is a 3-game match, quite close. And then after that, they lose quite comfortably. So the fact that they've played all 3 of these pairs before, I can't really see that pattern changing. They also have the least amount of experience individually and as a pair in this group, just the head-to-head. So I think whilst it's going to be a great experience for them, and they're a good pair, I don't think they're going to have much say on this group. Now, the other 3 pairs, it's really, really interesting. There's lots of positives for them, and then there's also some question marks. So for Liu Shengshu and Tang Ning, they are the world champions. I think they're still world number 1s. And whilst they are 5-all in head-to-head against Baek Ha-na and Lee So-hee, it doesn't tell the whole picture, as since the Olympic Games, it is 3-1 to the Chinese pair. Although, that one did come at last year's World Tour finals, which Baek Ha-na and Lee So-hee did win. And talking of them, I think Baek Ha-na and Lee So-hee are probably the outsiders of these 3, because they did qualify lowest out of those three, and they've had by far the worst year in comparison to the other two. Kim and Kong have been in 7 finals this year. They've qualified as second. Liu Shu and Tan Ning are the world champions and one of the ones. It's tough to kind of get better than that. But let's not forget, Beckman and Lee So-hee aren't just the defending champions, but have been in the last 2 World Tour finals. So they like playing on the red courts. And also against the other Koreans, Kim and Kong, whilst they do trail 4-1, their last meeting. Oh wait, they won. Sorry. My notes kind of confused me there. Beckman and Lee So-hee, they're 4-1 down against Kim and Kong, but that one was the last time that they played, and all bar one of their matches has also gone the full distance, so it's incredibly close between them. For Kim and Kong, they've got a positive head-to-head against their compatriots, like I just said, and against the Chinese Taipei. And whilst they are 2-1 down against the Chinese, they did win the last time they faced, although I do believe that was at the China Masters, and there were a lot of doubts over the Chinese pair. I think there's been injuries that have been plaguing them. I think at that tournament it was Liu Shengshu's foot or something along that line. So again, like just going through that, there's lots of question marks and stuff against all those players. But the biggest one for me, and it's actually affected my selection, is Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning. Are they fully fit? If they were, then I'd pick them with no doubt whatsoever. But it's a difficult group. I think I might have to go for both Korean pairs because of those injury concerns for the Chinese. And it's also especially as the fact that I know that recently it's affected Liu Shengshu more, who is more of the playmaker of the partnership. She is the slightly stronger player. Tan Ning's been playing really well. She won the China National Games with Wang Dongping, and I've seen her play some good matches in the Super League as well. But I haven't really seen anything of Liu Shengshu, which tells me that maybe the injury isn't fully fit, isn't fully healed, and that for me really does put too much of a question mark against them. So I've gone for Beckman and Lee So-hee and Kim and Kong. However, I will say this: if Liu and Tan are fully fit or 90% above, then I wouldn't be surprised if they come through. I just don't know when it comes to them, and it's enough of a doubt, especially with the way those injuries affected their last few tournaments. If it's still there, if it's still an issue, I can't see that changing at the World Tour Finals. As much as maybe that tournament might really bring it out of them, like, let's really dig deep, even if the injuries are bad. Again, these pairs are very, very good. The 2 Korean pairs are decent, and I think we'll be able to capitalise. I think they'll be very good at being able to kind of pick out Liu Shengshu or whoever's struggling the most. So that's my pick. So moving on, last discipline. Mixed doubles. Group A, we've got Dichapon and Supasara, Zhang Zhengbang and Wei Yaxin, Tom Ducurl and Delphine Delru, and Midori Kawa and Saito. Now, like I've said this about a few of the groups throughout these World Tour Finals, I think most are looking at the top 2 pairs to go through, the Thai pair and the Chinese pair. And they could be my picks, but it isn't straightforward. Dichapon and Supasara have a negative head-to-head against the Japanese, although they did win their last match. But let's not forget, at the World Championships, where I did pick Dichapon and Supasara as one of my picks to at least get into the medal rounds, they were upset by the Japanese pair. So that pair the Japanese cannot be overlooked. However, for the Thais, they will come in firing as they won the Australian Open, their last tournament, and not their last tournament, because they are in the SEA Games and they're in the final there playing some really good stuff, and they're coming up against their younger compatriots. So I'll be very surprised if they don't come away from the SEA Games with the gold medal. So they've won their last, meaning they probably would have won their last 2 tournaments, and I think that's going to give them a huge confidence boost. So now, this might sound a little obvious, but I think the opening match for the Thai pair is going to be very key, because that's going to allow them to settle in. I said this a few times about them. We saw it at the Worlds, it was an early round. I saw it at the All England, a first round against Go Sun White and Chiffon Jamie Lai, and I've seen it in a few times, is the earlier rounds. So first rounds, second rounds are where they can be a bit susceptible to an upset by maybe a pair they see that they should win. So someone like Midori Karen Saito, or even Jaquel and Del Rue, who they've had some close games. I said Australia, I meant Kumamoto. Kumamoto Masters final was amazing mixed doubles final, and the ties only managed to win, and that was against Jaquel and Del Rue. Talking of Jaquel and Del Rue, they had a very solid 2025, especially in the second half. They've reached back-to-back finals at the Hyle Open and the Australian, and let's not forget they won a Super 1000 in Indonesia. So they've got a positive head-to-head against the Japanese, but a negative against the other two pairs, although they've only played the Chinese pair once. But they are very, very difficult, and I think I said this in the video about the mixed doubles, that they remind me of the Adcocks, who were the last European pair to win. They won the Super Series finals, so not the World Tour finals, and possibly we could see Jaquel and Del Rue replicate them. Zhang Zhengbang and Wei Xin, they are very consistent, and since their world final loss, which was quite a hard one for take, they have come back stronger with a very solid European leg, the last tournament that they played. But could pressure and expectation get to them? And I also foresee a very interesting match against Jaquel and Del Rue, because I think in the last few matches and throughout, we see this with European pairs a lot, but Jaquel and Del Rue are especially good at the tactics in and around the service area, which obviously is something that has plagued the Chinese a little bit. That was a big reason why they lost that world final with the flicking of Wei Xin. So will the French pair come in with a really strong game plan to go against Zhang Zhengbang and Wei Xin? It would be interesting if it's working and they can get a little bit roll and the Chinese can feel a bit flustered by it, combine that with just the pressure and expectation, playing on home soil and that kind of stuff. Maybe that might become too much. But in terms of my predictions, I've still gone with the top two, which is Deechpon and Tsubasara, and Zhang Zhengbang and Wei Xin. It's, like I said, it's quite... That seems like an obvious choice. It actually was a little bit more thought and deliberation over it, because there's a few factors that I've already just touched on. It's not definitely not going to be a straightforward group. I can foresee them being some very interesting matches that could upset and sway it. But I think just the reason I picked those two, I think, is winning two matches is going to be... I can see, again, each one Super. I could see them maybe losing to the Japanese pair. But they are got positive head-to-heads against the other two. With Zhang and Wei, they've got positives against two of those pairs. And I don't know. I think for Jaquel and Del Rue, they could upset their group. Midori Karen Saito, they could upset in one match, but I'm not quite sure they can do it to win two matches or three to qualify for the group. But yeah, I've gone with the top two in that, but it's not as straightforward. Group B, Feng Yanzhe and Wang Dongping, Chen Tangji and Toi Wei, Go Sim Wat and Siobhan Jimmy Lai, and Jafar Hediatullah and Felicia Pisaribu. Now, I want to start by saying, starting with the Malaysian pair, the world champions of Chen Tangji and Toi Wei, the pair that actually got to the final, the World Tour finals last year. They have recently, I think it was actually today, they lost surprisingly at the SEA Games, the young Thai pair of Rutanapak and Janicha, a pair that almost qualified for these World Tour finals. They lost to Jafar and Pasaribu in the semi-finals of Australia, which was the deciding match. And I just want to kind of, as a quick side note, in that match, Rutanapak really looked like he hobbled off the court, basically. So it is quite nice to know that injury to him wasn't too severe. But back to the pairs that did qualify for these World Tour finals. I think if you're a Malaysian fan, don't fret too much. I still think that Chen Tangji and Toi Wei can come in hot like they did last year. They did play, let's not forget that in their tournament before the SEA Games, they did play well in Australia. They did win it. And I wouldn't be surprised if, whilst they weren't expected to lose that Thai pair, their main focus has been on the World Tour finals. And possibly, while I know Malaysia did set some lofty goals for the SEA Games, and they probably were looking to Chen and Toe to deliver one of the gold medals, possibly more of a main focus is on the World Tour finals. Or maybe Chen Tangji and Toi Wei personally have seen the World Tour finals as the tournament they want to win, because they got runner-up last year. They are the world champions. They'd love to finish out the year by winning the World Tour finals too. So I wouldn't look too much. So I think, again, this is a group a little bit like the other one, split into the tail of two pairs at the top, two at the bottom, but it's a much bigger split. And I think Feng and Wang and Chen and To are the clear favourites. they both got, if we look at the bottom two, the Malaysian Go and Siobhan and Jafar and Pasaribu, against those two pairs against the top two pairs, Go and Siobhan have yet to win a match against Feng and Wang. The same goes for Jafar and Pasaribu. In fact, Jafar and Pasaribu haven't won a match against any of the pairs in that group. And then Go and Siobhan, so Jafar and Pasaribu haven't won a game against against Chen and To. They've gone to 3 a few times, but they are 5-0 down, which is quite telling. And I think all of those matches would have come from this year as well. And then with Go and Siobhan against the other Malaysians, Chen and To, it's 5-3 in favour of Chen and To, although the last 4 meetings have all gone to Chen and To. So if you look at head-to-heads and you even look at them further in than just on surface value, it's difficult to really see Feng and Wang and Chen and To not qualifying from the group. I've put here, whilst Go and Siobhan and Jafar and Pasaribu are great pairs capable of causing an upset, I think it will be difficult. So as a result, my prediction for this group is Feng Enze and Wang Dongping and Chen Tenji and To Wei. And with that, that's all the groups, all the predictions, all of my thoughts on it. So I guess all that's left for me to do is go, what do you think of my predictions? What do you think of my thoughts? Give me your own predictions in the comments below, and then when the World Tour Finals are done, and I'm doing my Beckman's breakdown on it, we can go through, we can see how well I did, how poorly I did, and we can also see how well all you guys did in the group stages. I might, is it possible, be able to do a quick video after the groups are done, to maybe try and do a quick prediction for the knockout stages, but I can't confirm that, because whilst I will be watching as much as I can, I will be watching pretty much all of it. I am actually going to be away in Denmark from Friday until the Sunday, because I'm going to be doing some commentary for the first ever Women's Badminton League in Denmark. So I will be watching the World Tour Finals, don't you worry. Most certainly I have enough time for that, but it's just whether I have enough time to do a quick video that I could upload to YouTube to kind of do maybe a quick follow-on prediction video for the semis and finals. If you want to see that, let me know, but I can't guarantee anything. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of the prediction video, of my predictions, sorry. And as always, if you like the video, like it, you can share it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, consider it. And if you like any of the Beckman's Breakdown merchandise that I'm wearing and I've worn in previous videos or on my social media videos, then click the link in the description. You can buy that stuff there. So, again, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.